Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about trying to save your marriage after your husband cheated on you. Specifically, we're going to talk about whether it's actually possible and what it really takes if you're going to make it work. Because this is something a lot of people are dealing with right now. You found out about the affair, you're devastated, you're angry, but for whatever reason, kids, history, finances, or maybe you still love him, you've decided you don't want to leave. You want to try to save this marriage. And everybody around you has an opinion about that decision. Your friends think you're crazy. Your family's telling you to walk away. Social media says once a cheater, always a cheater. But you're still here trying to figure out if this can actually work. So here's what I need you to understand. It can work. Marriages can be rebuilt after infidelity. I've seen it done, but not the way most people are trying to do it. Because what happens in most cases is people say they want to save their marriage, but then they do everything wrong. They forgive in 3 days. They accept I'm sorry without requiring any actual change. They do 100% of the work while he does nothing. And then 5 years later, they're shocked when they're still miserable or when it happens again. So today we're going to talk about what it actually takes. Not what sounds nice, not what's easy. What actually works if you're going to rebuild after betrayal. Let me start by telling you what doesn't work. And I see this all the time. You find out about the affair, you're crushed, you confront him, he cries, he apologizes, he tells you it's over and it'll never happen again, and within a week, you've forgiven him. You go back to sleeping in the same bed, you resume your normal routine, and you tell yourself you're moving forward. But here's what you're really doing. You're avoiding the pain. You're taking the easy route of accepting his words because actually dealing with what happened is too hard. And by forgiving that fast, you just taught him something really important. You taught him that cheating on you has no real consequences. You taught him that all he has to do is cry and apologize and you'll take him back. You taught him that your boundaries mean nothing. And then what happens? Maybe he cheats again in a year or two, or maybe he doesn't cheat again, but your marriage is miserable because you never actually dealt with what happened. You say you forgave him, but you bring it up in every fight. You check his phone constantly. You don't trust him. You resent him. You've stayed in the marriage, but you're punishing him every single day. And that's not rebuilding. That's just two people living together in misery. So let me be really clear about something. If you're going to save this marriage, you can't do it by pretending it didn't happen. You can't do it by forgiving immediately to avoid pain. You can't do it by going back to normal in a week. That's not healing. That's denial. Here's what actually has to happen if this is going to work. First, he's got to end all contact with the affair partner. And I mean ALL contact. Not we work together so we have to talk. Not we're just friends now. Not it's complicated. Zero contact. He changes jobs if he has to. He blocks her number. He blocks her on social media. He cuts her out of his life completely. And if he's not willing to do that, then he's not serious about saving your marriage. He's keeping his options open. He's staying connected to her while telling you what you want to hear. And you accepting anything less than complete no contact means you're choosing to share your husband with another woman. Is that really what you want? Second, he's got to give you complete transparency. And I'm talking about full access to everything. phone passwords, email passwords, social media passwords, his location at all times. You get to look at his phone whenever you want without him getting defensive or making you feel crazy for checking. Because here's the thing, he destroyed trust. He doesn't get to demand privacy while you're supposed to just trust him again. Privacy is what he had before he cheated. Now, he earns trust back by being completely open. And if he's fighting you on this, if he's saying you need to trust him or you're being controlling, someone who genuinely wants to rebuild trust doesn't hide their phone or refuse to share passwords. They do whatever it takes to prove they're trustworthy. Third, he needs to be in individual therapy. Not couples counseling yet, individual therapy for him to figure out why he cheated. Because people don't cheat because their marriage is bad. Plenty of people are in bad marriages and they don't cheat. People cheat because of something broken in them. Maybe it's selfishness. Maybe it's inability to handle conflict. Maybe it's needing external validation. Maybe it's avoidance. Whatever it is, he needs to figure it out and fix it. And if he's not willing to go to therapy, if he thinks he can just stop cheating and that's enough, then he's going to cheat again because he hasn't addressed why he did it in the first place. Fourth, you need to be in therapy too. Not because you did anything wrong, not because you caused the affair, but because betrayal trauma is real and you need professional help to process it. You can't heal from this level of betrayal on your own. With Google searches and hope, you need someone who specializes in infidelity to help you work through the pain, the anger, the loss of trust, all of it. And eventually, you both need to be in couples counseling together with someone who knows how to help couples rebuild after affairs. This isn't something you fix by just talking it out over dinner. You need expert guidance. Fifth, he's got to do the work to earn you back every single day. And I mean work. He checks in with you multiple times a day. He's patient when you're angry or hurt. He answers every question you have about the affair, even when it's uncomfortable. He shows up consistently. He proves through his actions, not his words, that he's trustworthy. He doesn't get defensive when you're struggling. He doesn't make you feel bad for not being over it yet. He understands that he broke this and it's his job to fix it. And that's going to take months, maybe years, not days, not weeks. This is a long-term commitment to rebuilding what he destroyed. Now, let me talk about what you need to stop doing. Because yes, he cheated. Yes, it's his fault. But if you're going to save this marriage, you've got to look at your role too. Not in the affair, that's 100% on him, but in what your marriage became before the affair happened. Were you checked out emotionally? Were you constantly critical? Had you stopped being intimate with him for months or years? Were you so focused on the kids that you stopped being his partner? I'm not saying any of that excuses cheating. It doesn't. But if you're going to rebuild, you've got to be honest about what died in your marriage before he cheated. Because if you don't fix those things, you're just going to end up right back where you started, even if he never cheats again. And here's something else you need to stop doing. You need to stop telling everyone about the affair. I know you're hurt. I know you need support. But when you tell your mom, your sister, your best friend, your coworkers, everyone on social media that he cheated, you're making it almost impossible to rebuild. Because now everyone in your life hates him. They're never going to trust him again. They're going to question every decision you make to stay. And family gatherings, friend events, all of it becomes toxic. So if you genuinely want to save this marriage, you keep this between you, him, and your therapist. That's it. You also need to make a real decision. You can't stay in limbo where you're sort of trying to work on things, but you're also sort of punishing him every day. Either you decide to truly forgive and rebuild, or you leave. But this middle ground where you say you forgive him, but you check his phone 5 times a day 2 years later, where you bring up the affair in every argument, where you withhold intimacy to punish him, that's not rebuilding. That's torture for both of you. So you've got to decide, are you in or are you out? Because staying while being miserable helps nobody. Let me tell you about a couple I worked with. The husband had a 6-month affair. The wife found out. She was devastated, but she wanted to try to save the marriage because of their kids. So here's what she did. She told him he had 1 week to decide if he was all in on saving their marriage or if he wanted a divorce. No middle ground. He chose to stay. So she laid out her requirements. Complete no contact with the affair partner, which meant he quit his job where she worked. Full transparency, she got all his passwords. Individual therapy for him, twice a week minimum. Couples counseling once a week. Daily check-ins. And she told him if he slipped up once, if he contacted the affair partner, if he lied about anything, she was done. No second chances. And you know what? He did it. He quit his job. He went to therapy. He gave her his passwords. He checked in multiple times a day. He answered every question she had, even when it was painful. He proved through consistent action over months that he was committed, and she did her part too. She went to therapy to process her pain. She worked on the issues in their marriage that existed before the affair. She made a real decision to forgive instead of just saying it while punishing him. It took almost 2 years before she really trusted him again. 2 years of hard work from both of them. But they rebuilt their marriage, and now, 5 years later, they're actually happy, not just staying together, actually happy. But here's what made the difference. She didn't accept bare minimum effort. She required what it actually takes, and he was willing to do it. So the question you need to ask yourself is your husband willing to do that level of work? Is he willing to quit his job if that's what it takes? Is he willing to give you complete access to everything? Is he willing to go to therapy and actually work on himself? Is he willing to be patient with your pain for however long it takes? Or is he just willing to say he's sorry and expect you to get over it? Because here's the hard truth. Most people aren't willing to do that work. Most cheaters want you to just forgive and forget. They want things to go back to normal as fast as possible. They don't want to quit their job. They don't want to give up their privacy. They don't want to go to therapy. They don't want to deal with your pain and anger. They just want the consequences to go away. And if that's what you're dealing with, if he's resisting doing the real work, then you need to accept that he's not actually committed to rebuilding. He just doesn't want to lose the comfort and security of being married to you. And if that's the case, you've got to ask yourself, why are you fighting so hard to save a marriage he's not willing to fight for? Why are you doing 100% of the work while he does nothing? Why are you accepting scraps when you deserve someone who's all in? Because staying in a marriage with someone who's not willing to do the work is choosing a life of misery. It's choosing to be with someone who'll probably cheat again because nothing's actually changed. It's choosing to waste years of your life hoping he becomes someone he's not willing to become. Let me also talk about something nobody wants to hear. Sometimes the marriage died before the affair and you're just trying to resurrect something that was already gone. Sometimes you're holding on to history and comfort instead of being honest about whether there's anything real left to save. And I'm not telling you to leave. I'm telling you to be honest with yourself about what you're fighting for. Are you fighting for a real partnership with love and trust and intimacy? Or are you fighting to avoid being alone? To avoid what people will think? To avoid starting over? Because those are very different things. Now, let me talk about some specific mistakes I see people make when they're trying to rebuild. First mistake, resuming sexual intimacy immediately. You think you need to sleep with him right away to keep him to compete with the affair partner, but all you're doing is rewarding betrayal. You're giving him full access without him earning anything back. Sexual intimacy should be the last thing that comes back, not the first. He needs to earn emotional intimacy first. He needs to prove he's trustworthy first. And if he's pushing for sex right away, he's showing you he doesn't understand what he did to you. Second mistake, accepting his excuses for why he cheated. You weren't giving me enough attention. We weren't having sex. Those might be problems in your marriage that you'll need to address, but they're not excuses for cheating. He had options. He could have talked to you. He could have suggested counseling, but he chose to cheat, and you accepting his excuses means you're letting him off the hook for his choice. Third mistake, setting boundaries, but not enforcing them. You tell him you need transparency, but don't check his phone because you don't want to seem crazy. You tell him no contact with the affair partner, but let it slide when he says they work together. Every time you set a boundary and don't enforce it, you teach him that your boundaries mean nothing. So if you're going to set requirements, be prepared to enforce them. And if he crosses a line, follow through on your consequence, even if that means leaving. Fourth mistake, thinking time heals this. It doesn't. Time without real change just gives you more time being miserable. I've talked to people 10 years past the affair who still don't trust their spouse because time passed, but nothing actually changed. Time plus real work can heal this, but time alone does nothing except make you older and more resentful. Fifth mistake, comparing yourself to the affair partner. You're looking at her pictures. You're trying to figure out what she had that you don't. You're wondering if you're not pretty enough, thin enough, fun enough, and you're torturing yourself with these comparisons. But here's what you need to understand. The affair wasn't about her being better than you. Affairs are about broken people making selfish choices. They're about escape and validation and avoiding real problems. She wasn't special. She was just available and willing. So stop making this about what she has that you don't. This is about what he's lacking in character and integrity. Let me talk about what genuine remorse looks like versus manipulation, because a lot of you are confusing the two. Genuine remorse means he takes full responsibility without excuses. He doesn't blame you or the marriage. He admits he made a selfish, destructive choice. He's willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild, even if it's uncomfortable or costly. He gives you transparency without being asked. He's patient with your pain, even when it's hard. He does the work in therapy. He shows up consistently day after day. That's genuine remorse. Manipulation looks like tears and apologies, but resistance to actual change. It looks like I said, I'm sorry. What more do you want? It looks like getting defensive when you ask questions. It looks like making you feel bad for not being over it yet. It looks like pushing for things to go back to normal quickly. It looks like telling you you're being controlling when you want to see his phone. It looks like continuing to have contact with the affair partner and making excuses for why he has to, that's not remorse. That's manipulation designed to get you to stop holding him accountable. And you need to know the difference. Because if you're accepting manipulation as remorse, you're setting yourself up to be hurt again. Someone who's genuinely remorseful doesn't fight transparency. They don't rush your healing. They don't make excuses. They don't blame you. They take ownership and they do whatever it takes to earn you back. So watch what he does, not what he says. Words are easy. Tears are easy. Apologies are easy. Consistent action over months, that's hard. And that's what actually matters. Now, let me address something for those of you who are months or years into trying to rebuild and it's not working. You've given him transparency. He's not in contact with the affair partner anymore. Maybe he even went to some therapy. But you're still miserable. You still don't trust him. You're still angry. You're still bringing it up. And you're starting to wonder if you made the wrong choice by staying. Here's what I need you to hear. If you're doing everything right and you're still this miserable, you need to consider that maybe you can't actually forgive him. And that's okay. Forgiveness isn't something you can force. Sometimes the betrayal is too big. Sometimes the trust is too broken. Sometimes staying was the wrong choice, and you need to be willing to admit that. Because staying in a marriage where you're miserable and resentful doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help him. It doesn't help your kids if you have them. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that you tried to make it work and it's not working, that you can't get past what he did, that you deserve to be with someone you can actually trust, and that means leaving. There's no shame in that. You tried. You gave it a real shot. But some things can't be fixed, and recognizing that is strength, not weakness. But before you make that decision, make sure you've actually done the work. Make sure you've been in therapy processing the betrayal. Make sure you've made a real decision to forgive instead of staying in limbo. Make sure you've addressed the issues that existed in your marriage before the affair. Make sure you've given it real time with real effort. Because if you haven't done those things, you don't actually know if it can work or not. You're just staying while being miserable without doing what it takes to rebuild. And that's different from genuinely trying and it's still not working. Here's another thing I need to address. What happens if you find out he's still in contact with the affair partner? Maybe he told you it was over, but you found texts. Maybe you saw he's still following her on social media. Maybe you found out they're still working together and talking every day. What do? Here's what you do. You leave immediately. No discussion, no second chance on this one. Because if he's still in contact with her after promising you he wasn't, he's choosing her over you. He's choosing to keep his connection with her over his commitment to rebuilding with you. And you staying after that teaches him he can lie to you and you'll accept it. It teaches him he can have both of you. Don't do that to yourself. And I know what some of you are thinking, but what if he really does have to work with her? Then he quits his job. Full stop. If he's not willing to quit his job to save his marriage, then saving his marriage isn't his priority. His comfort and career are more important to him than you are. And you accepting we have to work together as an excuse means you're choosing to share your husband with his affair partner 8 hours a day. Is that really what you want? Is that really what you're willing to settle for? Because that's not rebuilding. That's just extending the affair with your permission Let me tell you what the timeline of real rebuilding looks like. Because I think a lot of you have unrealistic expectations about how long this takes. In the first 3 months, you're in crisis mode. Everything's raw. You're devastated. He should be bending over backwards to prove himself. Complete transparency, constant communication, individual therapy for both of you. This is the period where you see if he's actually willing to do the work or if he's just waiting for things to blow over. Months 3 to 6, you start to see patterns. Is he consistently showing up? Is he still being transparent, or is he getting comfortable again and trying to reclaim privacy? Is he still answering your questions patiently, or is he getting defensive? This is where you'll know if his remorse is genuine or if it was just an act to keep you from leaving. This is also when you should start couples counseling if you haven't already. Months 6 to 12, you're building new patterns. Maybe you're starting to trust him in small ways. Maybe you're having good days mixed in with the hard days. Maybe you're able to be intimate again without feeling sick about it, but you're still vigilant. You're still checking in. He's still proving himself. This is not the time to relax and assume everything's fine. Year 1 to year 2, this is where real healing happens, if it's going to happen. You're building trust through consistent action over time. He's proven he can maintain transparency and boundaries for an extended period. You've processed your pain in therapy. You've worked on the issues in your marriage. You're actually rebuilding something new instead of just trying to get back to what you had. And somewhere in this period, if it's working, you'll find that you're not thinking about the affair every day anymore. You're not checking his phone obsessively. You're starting to trust him again, not blindly, but because he's earned it through 12 to 24 months of consistent proof. But here's the thing. Even at year 2, you're not done. This is something you'll carry for the rest of your marriage. There will be triggers. There will be hard days. There will be moments where the pain comes back. And he needs to understand that. He doesn't get to say, "It's been 2 years. Why aren't you over this?" He created a wound that will leave a scar, and he's got to be okay with that being part of your marriage forever if he wants to stay. If he's not willing to be patient with your healing for however long it takes, then he's not actually committed to rebuilding. Now, let me talk to those of you who are thinking about staying, but you haven't told him what you need yet. You're just hoping he'll figure it out. You're waiting for him to read your mind and do the right thing. Stop that right now. You need to be crystal clear about your requirements. Sit him down and tell him exactly what has to happen if you're going to stay. Write it down if you need to. No contact with affair partner. Full transparency. Individual therapy. Couples counseling. Daily check-ins. Whatever you need, you lay it out clearly and you give him a timeline. You have 24 hours to decide if you're all in on these requirements. If yes, we start immediately. If no, I'm filing for divorce. No ambiguity. No room for him to do the bare minimum and hope you'll accept it. And when you lay out your requirements, you also lay out your consequences. If you contact her even once, I'm done. If you lie to me about anything, I'm done. If you miss therapy appointments, I'm done. And then you follow through. Because if you set a consequence and don't enforce it, your requirements mean nothing. He'll learn he can cross your boundaries and you'll just threaten but never actually leave. So you better mean what you say. And if you're not ready to follow through on your consequences, then don't make them. Figure out what you're actually willing to enforce and start there. If you're staying because you're scared to be alone, you're making a decision based on fear. And decisions based on fear are usually bad decisions. You end up settling for less than you deserve because the unknown is scarier than the known misery. But let me tell you something, being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Being with someone who betrayed you and isn't willing to do the work to earn you back, that's worse. Being in a marriage where you're miserable and resentful for the next 20 years, that's worse. Wasting your life on someone who's not all in, that's worse. But so you've got to get real with yourself about why you're staying. And if you're staying for the right reasons, because you genuinely believe this marriage can be rebuilt, because you still love him despite what he did, because you're willing to do the hard work and he is too, then commit to it. But commit to doing it right. Don't settle for his bare minimum effort. Don't forgive without requiring real change. Don't rebuild without professional help. Don't accept privacy when you need transparency. Don't do all the work while he coasts. Require what it actually takes. Here's what it actually takes. It takes him ending all contact with the affair partner no matter what the cost. It takes complete transparency with full access to everything. It takes individual therapy for both of you and couples counseling together. It takes him doing massive work to earn your trust back through consistent action over months and years. It takes you making a real decision to either forgive and rebuild or leave instead of staying in limbo. It takes both of you addressing what was broken in the marriage before the affair. It takes patience and pain and hard conversations and professional guidance. That's what it takes. Not hope, not time, not just his apology. Real, consistent, hard work from both of you. And if he's not willing to do that, if he's pushing back on any of those requirements, if he's telling you you're being unreasonable or you need to distrust him or you need to get over it, then you need to hear what he's really saying. He's saying he's not willing to do what it takes. He's saying he wants you to just accept what happened and move on without him having to change anything. He's saying he's not all in on rebuilding. And if that's what you're hearing, then you've got your answer about whether this marriage can be saved. It can't. Not because it's impossible, but because he's not willing to do his part. Can your marriage be saved after he cheated? Yes, but only if you're both willing to do what it actually takes. Only if he's willing to end all contact with her, give you complete transparency, go to therapy, and do the daily work of earning you back. And only if you're willing to make a real decision to either forgive and rebuild or leave instead of staying while punishing him forever. Those are the requirements, and they're not negotiable. So the question isn't whether it can be saved. The question is whether he's willing to do what it takes and whether you're willing to require it. So can your marriage be saved after he cheated? Yes, but only if you're willing to require what it actually takes. Only if you're willing to enforce real consequences and real change. Only if you're willing to stop doing all the work while he does nothing. This isn't about forgiving fast or being nice or trying to compete with the affair partner. This is about setting clear standards and refusing to settle for less. Complete transparency. No contact with affair partner. Individual therapy for him. Couples counseling for both of you. Consistent action over months, not just words. Those are the requirements. And if he won't meet them, then you've got your answer about whether he's actually committed to rebuilding. Look, I'm here every day giving you this kind of real talk about relationships. If this helped you see what you need to do differently, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you're done accepting, and subscribe for daily truth about marriage and infidelity. You deserve a real marriage, not just the appearance of one, but you've got to require it.